So we have a virtual audience with us today, in addition to all of your lovely faces here. So I'm just going to get us started. If you wouldn't mind taking your seat so we can move forward with our presentation. For those of you who don't know, I'm Natalie Aldieri. I'm the Director of Immigration and New American Integration at the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. I'm pleased to welcome you here today. As I mentioned, we have a virtual audience with us, and so we will be recording the session today. On May 1st, so just earlier this week, the nation celebrated International Workers' Day, or May Day, to acknowledge immigrant workers who help keep our country running, growing, and thriving. Immigrants are a part of the fabric of our communities and do so much to strengthen our nation and our state. While we are not here to honor May Day today, today's convening is an important milestone in our work for immigrant integration and inclusion in Utah. And I want to thank you all for joining us. Today, you will hear from the convening partners of the New American Task Force, a presentation from the American Immigration Council on the latest research on new Americans in Utah, the voices of immigrant leaders in our community, and we will share more about how you can join our efforts with the New American Task Force. But first, we will have a message from Utah's Governor Spencer Cox. And while the governor could not be here with us today, he recorded a welcome message for you all.
Welcome to the inaugural convening of the Utah New American Task Force. I'm pleased to welcome you to this important event that brings state, business, and community leaders together. The task force is a statewide effort to develop a comprehensive strategy that maximizes the economic opportunities, social inclusion, and civic potential for new Americans, and to build an environment of belonging right here in Utah. Thank you to the Economic Development Corporation of Utah and its Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging, the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and its Center for Immigration Assistance, the Salt Lake Chamber, and World Trade Center Utah for bringing this group together to share the latest research regarding Utah's immigrant communities. Between the years 2000 and 2019, the number of immigrants in Utah increased by 64%. We know new Americans play a vital role in the state's fastest growing economy and most in-demand fields. While immigrants made up 8.4% of the state's overall population, they represented 10.1% of its STEM workers, 18.7% of its manufacturing workers, and 7.8% of its healthcare workers in 2019. Within the healthcare industry, immigrant physicians make up 12.4% of the state's doctors. These are just some of the key findings in the New Americans Research Profile produced by the American Immigration Council. Last year, I released the One Utah Roadmap outlining 6 key priorities focused on economic advancement, education and innovation, rural matters, equality and opportunity for all. The roadmap's key principle is that everyone is invited, and that includes immigrants and refugees in Utah. Thank you again to the conveners of this important task force. I look forward to hearing more about the strategy this group will set forth.
So we have a packed agenda for you. First, we'll be hearing from the convening partners representing the business community about their support and partnership with the New American Task Force. We'll start with Ryan Starks, Director of Business Services with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And then we'll hear from other key leaders who have put together this convening with us today.
Good afternoon. Last week I was with Governor Cox in Mexico, and we gave 50 presentations to different delegations in Spanish. And so I came up, and my first inclination was to say, Buenas tardes. It's great to be here with you today. Also just wanted to recognize Miles Hansen in his beige suit today, which is looking really great. So my name is Ryan Starks, and I'm with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And I had some points prepared that we just heard the governor share. And so I'm not going to spout out everything that he just said. I just wanted to reaffirm our office's support for this very important initiative. We believe that immigrants play a vital role in Utah's #1 economy. If you think about the number of jobs that are created by immigrants, it's astounding. And so we're so appreciative of our brothers and sisters from other countries who come to Utah looking for the US dream, the American dream. They add richness and culture to our community. They add talent and critical thinking. And it's just so awesome that we as a state are embracing our immigrant friends. Before I turn the time over to Miles and Derek and Theresa, I did just want to share one quick analogy. Some of you are familiar with the sycamore tree. Sycamore tree is a tree that grows up to 100 feet tall. It's really tall. But what's unique about a sycamore tree is its root system doesn't go very deep. In fact, the way that a sycamore tree stands tall and stands strong during the wind and the rain and the storms is through an integrated root system that's not very deep, but it's connected. And so because these roots grow together instead of down, these trees are strong and they don't move. If you look at Utah's business community, we are strong because we have a very tight root system. Some of us have been here all of our lives. Our forefathers came to Utah. Others of us have been here for just a short time. Immigrants haven't been here for a long time. Maybe perhaps some immigrants haven't been here for a long time, but what they add is significant connectivity to our root system that makes all of us stand stronger. So on behalf of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, thank you for being here on this momentous day. Thank you, Natalie, for your good work. We're really appreciative of the good things that she's doing as the inaugural Director of Integration, New American Integration and Immigration. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Theresa Foxley. Following Theresa's remarks, we'll turn the time over to Derek Miller and then Miles Hansen. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. That was awesome. Natalie, thank you. And it was wonderful to hear remarks from Governor Cox earlier today, and really delighted to be here with a bunch of friends. It's so cool to look out and see so many familiar faces, and also to see some faces that I hope to be friends with here after the launch of today and after being able to work with you on during some work groups that are part of this event. So I'm really grateful again to be here today and to join alongside my co-conveners here. I have great co-conveners in this effort and appreciate every opportunity that I have to work with them. By way of quick background, I do know a lot of you, but for those of you who don't, my name is Theresa Foxley and I lead the Economic Development Corporation of Utah. And our organization set forth a vision statement quite recently. And that was that our vision was for every aspiring Utahn to have a quality job. And when we set forth this vision, we really thought about this word aspiring in a couple of different ways. It meant for us a quality job for people who aspire to something better. The people who are willing to do the work to better themselves, to create better opportunity for themselves and their family. But also this was really important to us as an executive team, and we're thinking about our strategy. And that was that we also wanted that word aspiring Utahn, or those words aspiring Utahn, to be for those who are not yet part of Utah, but who want to be part of this community. And that is why today's event and this task force really aligns so perfectly with EDCUtah's vision. We work towards achieving this vision by researching Utah's unique competitive economic advantages. We market those advantages to organizations that are interested in creating jobs and opportunity here in the state. And we manage corporate recruitment projects that are hoping to put down roots, to use some of Ryan's analogy here. This research report and the task force will add value to every facet of our organization's program. I really would like to thank our friends at the American Immigration Council for their great work in the research report, along with those of you in the room who contributed to it. And really, you all have a copy of it sitting in front of you. It's a terrific report. And I would just say that I think before today's event, we all intuitively knew that our state's multicultural communities and our new Americans contributed greatly to our economy. And it's really fabulous to now have the research and that quantitative information to validate that, but also to help us identify a few areas of opportunity and improvement. One of the things that was exciting to us as we read through this research report was to see that while 8.4% of the state's population are represented by New Americans represent 18%, over 18% of our manufacturing talent. Where we are going as a state is to invest in durable industries and durable jobs. And given the dramatic increases of manufacturing projects that we've seen in the EDCUtah business development pipeline, which is a trend that we don't expect to see slow down anytime soon, this available talented workforce really speaks well to Utah's future economic growth. And again, just organizationally, we believe fervently that New American talent is a win-win. Expanded opportunities for individuals and families who want to contribute here, and a larger talent pool for employers in today's historically low and historically tight labor market. So our community, business, and civic leaders in Utah, we know through survey work that we've done with them, are really vested in building a community that is welcoming, that creates a sense of belonging, where all individuals and employees can succeed. And the companies that we court, those who we sit across the table with and talk to them about becoming part of this community, they're very interested in understanding how their employees can succeed, how inclusive our economy is, and what our culture is like. This report really helps us to start to identify some action items that will come, that will be fleshed out in the task force, and that really will be a terrific step forward for us in our ability to demonstrate that. So again, I thank you all, and look forward to working with you through in the coming months on the other task force items.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with all of you, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, and the Chamber is thrilled to join with other organizations represented here today in convening the New Americans Task Force. This is a statewide effort that will help bolster Utah's economy through immigrant businesses, through innovation, and further solidify efforts that started decades ago. Many of you have been involved over that period of time. And you know that Utah has a strong history of welcoming with those who have a desire to help build a vibrant community. In 2010, the debate over immigration policy had escalated. It was at the forefront of a national conversation. Here in Utah, we were concerned with the consequences of adopting bad policy that we saw happening in other states. And we were concerned with the impact that that bad policy might have on our state's reputation and on our prosperity. The Salt Lake Chamber, along with a coalition of state leaders, both from the private sector as well as from the public sector, as well as religious groups, law enforcement, in fact, the entire community came together to outline a set of principles that would help guide the immigration discussion here in our state. This became known as the Utah Compact, and it helped to change the tone of the conversation, not just here in Utah, but really across the country. And it helped to improve the substance of the immigration debate around the country as well. The Utah Compact is based on core values, as I stated. Those are core values like compassion, openness, economic prosperity. I want to remind you of those principles. And as I read these, I want you to think and remember that they were written in 2010, but consider the applicability that they continue to have today. The first principle was federal solutions. As immigration is a federal policy issue between the US government and other countries, not Utah, but other countries need to step forward. Our country, the nation, needs to step forward. We believe that Utah's congressional delegation and others should lead the efforts to strengthen federal laws and protect our national borders, in addition to urging state leaders to adopt policies for addressing immigrants who do come to our state. The second principle was law enforcement. We respect the rule of law in Utah, and we support law enforcement's professional judgment and discretion. We believe that local police resources should focus on criminal activities, not civil violations. The third is families. As strong families are the foundation of successful communities, we oppose policies that unnecessarily separate families. And we champion policies that support families that improve health, education, and well-being of all Utah children. The fourth is the economy. Utah is best served by a free market philosophy that maximizes individual liberty, freedom, and opportunity. We acknowledge the economic role that immigrants play as workers and taxpayers. Utah's immigration policies must reaffirm our global reputation as a welcoming and business-friendly state. The fifth and final principle is a free society. Immigrants are integrated into communities across Utah. We must adopt a humane approach to this reality, reflecting our unique culture, history, and spirit of inclusion. The way we treat immigrants will say more about us as a free society and less about our immigrant neighbors. Utah should always be a place that welcomes people of goodwill. I mentioned that the Utah Compact was created in 2010, but almost a decade after its introduction, our immigration system was still in need of reform, as politics were again overshadowing more than policy discussions. So the Chamber once again gathered the original signatories and invited new leaders in our state from across the community to reaffirm the principles that are laid out in the Utah Compact and to invite others to pledge their support. Well, here we are in 2022, and we believe these conversations surrounding new Americans and immigrants are even more relevant today. We recognize the critical role that new Americans play in the economic prosperity of our state. They positively impact our economy through entrepreneurship, workforce participation, tax contributions, and spending power. As Utah's voice of business, the Salt Lake Chamber is proud of the role that the business community has played on this issue. And we look forward to engaging in next steps with Utah's New Americans Task Force. We know this task force will help solidify our state's global reputation, and we hope it will encourage other states to follow in our footsteps. Let me say this in conclusion. This is something you all know. That is that Utah is a place where the American dream is alive and well. But let us also strive to be a place where all people of goodwill can come and achieve their American dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek and Theresa, for your leadership on this important issue. And thank you, Ryan, for all that Go Utah does, and especially for the important lessons you shared about sycamore trees and tan suits. We're all incredibly enlightened, so I always can count on Ryan for sharing great wisdom with us. And also grateful for Natalie for joining the Go Utah team to help make sure keeps a close eye on Ryan and keeps us looking good and focused on the most important things. Ryan and I had a great time in Mexico last week, and it is great to be here. And in all seriousness, thank you so much to Z, to Natalie, Theresa, EDCUtah, Derek, the Chamber, everybody involved for their leadership to bring us together today on such an important issue. Derek was talking about the Utah Compact, and I was reflecting on where I was at that time. I was working in internationally, I believe it was in Armenia, working on visa issues, working on immigration. And I remember having so much pride as a Utahn at a time when we had this really caustic national debate and political narrative around immigration, to see Utah rise above and take a principled approach that rallied people together. And I firmly believe then that Utah was having a very important leavening effect on the nation and the political discourse around the world. And if that was needed in 2010, it certainly is needed today in 2022. And the work that the task force is doing is so important. It's important to new Americans living here in Utah. It's important to our business, to our economy, to our society, but it's important to the nation and set an example to the rest of the world. And in this way, you know, we are all familiar with the example of a candle burning on a candlestick, and that provides some light and an example. The work that this task force is doing is making our candlestick just a little bit taller, so this light, this example, can shine just a little bit further to be a beacon in a world that is becoming increasingly dark and contentious and divided over a lot of issues, immigration included. You know, here at World Trade Center Utah, we exist to accelerate global growth for Utah companies in our pursuit of making Utah the crossroads of the world, one business at a time. The reason why we're so focused on this is our competitive advantage as a state. Here in the state of Utah, we speak 130 languages. Our export growth rate is growing faster than anywhere else in the nation. We have an extremely high rate of people that have lived and experienced other peoples and cultures. And this international mindset is what makes us different from every state around us. And so this is part of our maintaining our competitive edge, is working so hard to fulfill the goals of the task force to maximize economic opportunity for new Americans here in Utah, social inclusion, and civic potential. And so as an organization, we are all in on doing everything we can to be a champion and a supporter of the important work that we're here to talk about today, and now backed up with the research and facts that help us better understand where we're doing well and where we can improve. And we're committed to leading it as an organization to do everything we can to improve. And this is important for us institutionally, but also, like I mentioned, it's very important to me personally. Theresa, I loved how you talked about how aspiring our new Americans are. And it made me think when Derek was talking about working on this visa line, and I was living in Armenia, working at the US Embassy there, and we had started up a program to make it a little bit easier for Iranians to apply to come to the United States. If you go back in time a little bit, at that point, the Obama administration was putting a lot of tough sanctions on Iran and wanted to reach out to the Iranian people. And so I spent all day, every day hearing about the aspirations of these Iranians that wanted to come here to the United States for a broad range of reasons. And every day as I had the opportunity to do that, and you hear these inspiring stories, I was motivated at that point in time to do everything I possibly could to help facilitate the travel for those that we want to come. Obviously, Iran, there are a lot of challenges. And so we were very clear-eyed about those challenges, and not everybody that came to the visa window was the type of person you'd want here in the United States, but there are so many good people from all walks of life. And so now it is so rewarding to be on the flip side here in Utah, to have the opportunity to work with these new Americans as we all work collectively to make Utah the most welcoming place in the nation for people coming from around the world. And so thank you again to everybody. And at World Trades in Utah, we look forward to plugging in and continuing to support every possible way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa, Derek, Miles, and Ryan. Really appreciate your comments and your support of this task force. Next, I'm pleased to welcome Liana Garcia Torres to share the American Immigration Council's research report on new Americans in Utah.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Natalie. And I want to give a special thank you to the World Trade Center for hosting us here today, as well as all of the conveners of the task force. We so appreciate the leadership of the Chamber, of the World Trade Center, of Go Utah, and of EDCUtah in this space. As Natalie mentioned, my name is Liana Garcia Torres. I'm the Deputy Director of State and Local Initiatives at the American Immigration Council. And we've had the privilege of working with many of the folks in this room for over a decade. Many of you might be familiar with our work as New American Economy. We were very fortunate to merge with the American Immigration Council starting in January of this year. So our data is the same, but our name has changed. But I'm thrilled to be here today launching the report that we put together in collaboration with EDCUtah. So I just want to let you know there is a ton of information. It's a small but mighty report. I'm going to be giving the overview today. Don't feel like you need to take notes. It's all going to be right in front of you. So let's get started. We are, like I said, American Immigration Council, and we are fortunate to bring our powerhouse economic research team and our state and local initiatives to join the body of work that the council has been doing really for over 3 decades and pair it with their federal advocacy, litigation, organizing, and direct service provision. So as an organization, we're really working toward 3 main goals. We're working for a fair, just, and humane immigration system that works for all Americans. We're working for a country that understands that immigration is America's greatest competitive advantage. And we're working for inclusive communities where everyone that calls America home can thrive. And our state and local team, which has been helping spearhead this report, really came about a decade ago when we saw a lot of leadership coming from the state and local level We've noticed gridlock going on at the federal level for quite some time, but we saw state and local leaders stepping up and leading the charge toward more comprehensive immigration policies. And so now we work in more than 100 communities in honestly every region of the state, at the local level with municipal leaders and community leaders, civic leaders, at the state level with governors' offices, with state legislators and statewide departments and agencies, as well as with the business community through chambers of commerce and through our business coalitions. And our goal as a team is honestly to use our research to quantify exactly how immigrants are an economic asset at every level of the economy and in their communities, and then use this narrative to bring leaders together across the aisle, across industries, across states, and really advocate for an immigration policy that reflects what I think all of us in this room know, and that is that immigrants are vital to the success of this nation. So this work isn't new to Utah. As you all know, the Utah State Compact was an instrumental piece of an instrumental document rather, that has inspired states all over the country. So since 2019 alone, 7 other states have either introduced or reaffirmed their state compact on immigration, really taking the lead from what was done here in Utah and seeing the value in having a coordinated voice in listing out these guiding principles. And so it hasn't just been at the state level though. We've also seen the Salt Lake County really lead the charge, making sure that folks knew that immigration was key to the economic vitality of the region. So all of that just to say, this isn't new to the folks in this room, and we're proud to partner with you as we launch this New Americans Task Force. And as part of that effort, we're thrilled to launch with EDCUtah this report, New Americans in Utah, which is right in front of you. To begin, I'm just going to give a few pieces of information. This is for the entire state of Utah. Unless otherwise stated, all of the data I'm going to reference is coming from the 2000 and 2019 American Community Surveys from the US Census Bureau. And just a note on terminology, whenever we use the term immigrant or new American, we're referring to a US resident who was born outside of the country to non-US citizen parents, regardless of status. So this is going to include refugees, asylees, dreamers, immigrants. So thanks. Let's jump in. If you had to guess, how many metros do you think grew without immigrants? You can see it right behind me because I jumped the gun. But 0. That's right. None of the major US metro areas grew without immigrants in the last 50 years. And so this is really important just to set, this isn't a Utah thing, this is a national issue. And we see that immigrants are really vital for the sustainable growth that we're looking for innovation and for boosting our economy. And Utah has a clear advantage over the rest of the country because according to the 2020 census, the Utah population was growing faster than the US population, and its immigrant population is actually growing even faster. So between 2000 and 2019, we saw that the number of immigrants in Utah increased by 63.7% compared to 41.4% nationally. So it's quite substantial. And during that same period, the US born population grew by 36.9% here in Utah compared to 12.1% nationally. So we're noting that there was a 38.8% total increase in population in the state, but a 63.7% increase in the immigrant population. So immigrants are accounting for about 12% of the population growth in the entire region. And looking at the raw numbers, we see that the population in 2019 was just above 250,000 residents in the state. And this accounts for, as the governor mentioned, just about 8% of the population, 8.4%, which is a bit below what we're seeing in the national average. And that's an area of opportunity for Utah. But like I said, these demographics are changing rapidly. And it's really playing a key part in the story that Utah is telling. So if we look at where immigrants in the state are coming from, we see that the vast majority are coming from Mexico, which makes sense geographically. But really, when you look at where other folks are coming from, it's quite varied. We have immigrants coming from India, Canada, El Salvador, China. So even though the largest group by far is coming from Mexico, you do have a very varied new American workforce here. And we also know that the new American population is increasing, but you might be asking yourself, why does it make sense to think of this as an economic or workforce lens? Why does it make sense to think about this beyond what we're seeing culturally? And it's because immigrants in Utah are more likely to be of prime working age. So the immigrants in the workforce are more likely to be 25 to 54 than their US born counterparts. And that allows them to participate more actively in the labor force and contribute to the economy as taxpayers and as consumers. And people of working age are also really critical to filling this tight labor market that we've been seeing at both ends of the skills and education spectrum. And so even though we've seen a lot of volatility in the labor market for obvious reasons, given a global pandemic over the past year, we are seeing business coming out of the other side, opening up, and an increase in travel. And it's going to be crucial in order to respond to that, to have the talent in place. And the fact of the matter is that the growth of the new American population is strengthening the Utah workforce. Utah's immigrants have a slightly higher labor force participation rate than the US born residents. And we see new Americans playing an outsized role in some of the state's fastest growing and most in-demand fields, as the governor referenced. We're seeing it across the skills and education spectrum, even though immigrants are a little more likely than their US born counterparts to have difficulty finding jobs that match their skill set. We call this brain waste, and it's when someone has a bachelor's degree, but is working in a position that doesn't require a bachelor's degree. So that's another opportunity for the state. And while 8.4% of the population, immigrants are nearly 13% of physicians and nearly 19% of manufacturing workers, which have been critical roles, not just during the pandemic, but as the state and as the nation continue to recover and move forward. But new Americans aren't just working in our jobs here in Utah, they're also creating jobs. There were 14,000 immigrants who owned their businesses here in 2019, and that creates job opportunities for all of Utah's workers. But Utah's immigrants are starting businesses at a lower rate than their US born counterparts, which is a difference from what we're seeing nationally. So that's another great opportunity for the state to find solutions to help empower immigrants create new jobs here in the state. And new Americans in Utah have a concrete economic footprint with a tax base that supports our local infrastructure, with consumer spending that goes back into the local economy, and attracting businesses as workers that drive innovation. Immigrants in the state earned about $7 billion in 2019. And from that, nearly $573 million went to state and local taxes, so right back here into Utah. About $1 billion went into federal taxes, and that left about $5.4 billion in what we call spending power, which is income that can be infused back into the local economy through consumer spending. So going to the movies, grabbing a bite to eat, shopping at the mall. But it's important to note that new Americans aren't just the current workforce here in Utah. Utah is also attracting and educating the workforce of tomorrow. In the 2020-2021 school year alone, there were more than 8,500 international students who were enrolled in colleges and universities in Utah. And they weren't just studying here, they were supporting the economy by contributing $207.5 million in spending to the US economy and supporting more than 2,000 jobs. And you can see behind me the various countries that many of our international students are coming from here in Utah. And leveraging the contributions of these students is another great opportunity for the state. Research has found that increases in the number of international students actually boost innovation and patent creation, and that in return boosts revenue, which creates opportunities for all students here in Utah. And finally, Utah's growing immigrant population is also reflected in an increasingly diverse student population in local schools. In 2019, 16.5% of the student body in K-12 schools were immigrants or the children of immigrants under the age of 18. And as you can see right behind me, these students are multilingual. They're bringing a global perspective that's going to be so important to leverage as the future of Utah's workforce and as we look at expanding our talent pool. So there's so much more in this small and mighty report that I have time to go into today. You can dig into it right in front of you, but I also wanted to let you know about an additional resource we have at the council. It's an interactive tool called Map the Impact. You can see it at maptheimpact.org. And what that lets you do is see a snapshot at the national level, the state level, every congressional district, the 100 largest metro areas, and all 3,000 counties for the country. And there you can see the demographics and the economic contributions of immigrants and refugees. So we hope you'll dig into that and learn a bit more about the immigrants and refugees in your state. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Leilani, for that amazing report. And thank you for partnering with the EDCUtah and the Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging on this great project. My name is Zeman Zhao. I go by Z for short, and I direct the Center for Economic Opportunity and Belonging at EDCUtah. And I want to welcome all of you here. As you heard from Leilani, the numbers are just incredible. It's amazing. But I also want to bring to today's conversation real individuals who are new Americans in the community who are making significant impacts. So for the next portion of the program, I would like to invite 3 amazing speakers who will be sharing with you their contributions in the community today. The first one is Dr. Dinesh Patel. Dr. Dinesh Patel manages the Patel Family Investment, is also the honorary chair of the New Americans Task Force. Followed by Dr. Patel, we'll have Andrea Varick, who is the co-head of Morgan Stanley Global Center and head of the cost basic and tax reporting at Morgan Stanley. Thank you, Andrea, for being here. And lastly, I want to introduce Lorena Riffle Jensen, my great friend, who is the Deputy Director at the Department of Economic Development at Salt Lake City Corporation. With that, Dr. Patel.
Thank you, Z, for the introduction. Whenever Z calls, I just say yes. And again, I'd like to thank Natalie, Theresa, Derek, Miles, and Ryan. And my role is honorary chair, so I just let Z do the work and I take the credits. It's very simple. I am a new American, and I co-founded a company called Theratech in Utah in 1985. And in 1999, a large national pharmaceutical company acquired us for about $350 million. The facility is still in Salt Lake City, still employing about 300, 400 people. Throughout my career, I have seen firsthand the important contributions of new Americans throughout Utah, especially as pointed out in the presentation in healthcare, a lot of physicians, in life sciences, medical technology, a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of IT workers, STEM education and all, and then in manufacturing. So I was the co-chair of a similar effort in 2016 to maximize the potential of new Americans in Salt Lake County by convening cross-sector stakeholders. The task force created actionable strategies to improve the quality of life for immigrants and refugees while making Salt Lake County more economically competitive. I believe that task force work was important and used in creating this new task force. So the task force helped elevate Salt Lake County's status as a welcoming designation worldwide, including the recognition of the first county in the entire nation to receiving the welcoming certification. Utah's demographics are shifting. It was that everybody came to the Wasatch Front. Now the new Americans have gone beyond the Wasatch Front. The statewide task force builds on the seeds that were planted and have started to bloom from St. George to Box Elder County. I encourage the businesses and communities to join the task force to contribute to building a better future for all in Utah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event today. And really, it's such an honor to be here with you individuals, hearing the story of your contributions to the state and new Americans. I'm actually getting a little emotional because you've made an impact on my life and my family. So thank you for representing Utah so well and leaning into really the opportunities for new Americans to fulfill their full potential. So I will share with you, my name's Andrea Verkic. I work at Morgan Stanley. I'm head of the Salt Lake Center for Morgan Stanley here. But I am, as mentioned, a new American and a Utahn, a very proud Utahn now. I'll share with you my story as well as my father's and how we found, and made our home in Utah. Our story started about 30 years ago. In 1992, my family immigrated to Germany following the civil war that was happening in former Yugoslavia. And so I was a 5-year-old girl on a bus with her parents and 2 suitcases, embarking on a journey to a new home, which we didn't know how long that would be, but it was to escape the conflict that was uprising. So I think we all can relate to what that might look like given the recent events in the world with what's happening in Ukraine. And it's quite, heartbreaking. And so it was such a great foresight for my father to choose to leave right at the brink of that, because 2 months later, grenades fell into our home. And so imagine the story of our families would be very different had that not occurred. But in 1997, we had a great opportunity to immigrate to America. And to quote my father, when the war ended, he said, "Your mom and I would be fine going back home, but there's no future for you and your brother." And so due to the great programs that Utah was offering and the United States for immigrants, we had the opportunity to come here. And so we came to Utah, we've stayed in Utah. So 25 years later, again, very proud Utah being here. It was touched on that in Utah, there's over 130 languages spoken. And we talked a little bit about the community and engaging, being a tight-knit community and coming together and helping people. And so both of those things really had an impact in how I found belonging here. And so a few days after moving to Utah, my parents enrolled me at Horizon Elementary in Murray. I was one of a kind. Nobody obviously spoke what we called at the time Serbo-Croatian, but fortunately I spoke German. And so my kind teacher, Miss Marshall, purchased a dictionary, English to German translating dictionary, because there wasn't one in my native language yet. And she would write me really lovely notes on my desks that she would leave to make sure that I knew how welcomed I was in the classroom and how happy she was that I was there. But beyond that, the secretary's son, Scott, served a mission in Germany. And so he volunteered his time on a weekly basis to come to the school and teach me English and also teach my classmates German. And so in a short amount of time, I made friends and truly found belonging. Never did I feel that I didn't belong despite having a different background. And so this is really to highlight the impact that we as a community can have on new Americans. It was touched on that I believe nearly 17% of students in our schools today are new Americans. And so what we can do, right, to make sure that they have the same sense of belonging and inclusion and welcome as I have. Speaking to the story of my father, he was a very successful businessman in his homeland, but in Germany, he became a forklift driver. To your point, Theresa, doing what you need to do to help your family. Coming here, I helped him write resumes, his resume in the little English that I knew and learned. And we would, go to different businesses handing out his resume. He was very eager to get a job to be able to support his family. Ultimately, he got a CDL driver's license and became a truck driver. And within a year was able to purchase his own truck and be a contractor. Within another year or so, he purchased a couple more, sponsored other new Americans to also get their license so that they have an opportunity to provide for their families. And so this is in a very short amount of time, right, without knowing the language, the opportunities that this country and this state provided to my family. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 2002, but what he was able to accomplish in the 5 years really not only helped my mom, a widowed mom now with her 2 children, carry my father's legacy and opportunities for their children forward, but also continue to support other families, right, through the small business that he established. And so I'm here in front of you today as a really proud Utah. Thank you for including me in this community, but also as a proud daughter of a father living his American dream. So thank you for all the work that you do. This is a remarkable task force, and I'm so excited to see what it will further do for our community. Good afternoon. When Z and Natalie call you, they're powerful women. You can't say no to them. So they are indeed the secret weapon. Z, some of the numbers you talked about in House of Lake County, that was your work. So thank you so much. Today I stand in front of you as a woman who is very grateful to be here in the United States. I am an immigrant from Chile who came here, her parents, as a political asylee. The immigration process took about 8 years. So for about 8 years of my life, I didn't know whether I would be staying here or not. When I was told by my parents that this was now our home, my heart was broken because it was so different than my homeland. So I had a feeling that I didn't want to get too attached to this community in case I needed to go back. Many received us with love, compassion, and acceptance, but some didn't. And with the beautiful stories we've heard, I look at Dinesh Patel. Dinesh is an incredible human being. There's been times that I have had the honor to host girls from India in my home and learn so much from them, especially gratitude. And I call Dinesh, and Dinesh helped me do that. So I don't want to sound like I am being negative in any way, but I do believe that some of these conversations must be honest, truthful, and I do believe that a community that has difficult conversations can actually be stronger and better. So as I talked about, the process it seemed to me that it took forever. And as a young woman, and many of you who are immigrants can probably relate to this, you talked about helping your father write his resume. You become a little person that is running around doing everything. So you grow up really fast because there's no choice. You must help your parents. And I often think, what does that do to them? The parents who, once upon the time, your father, a successful business owner, is now trying to provide for his family. And unfortunately, sometimes when someone has an accent, they're still like, the belief, well, why haven't you learned English? Or why do you sound different than I do? Instead of thinking that individual speaks more than one language. What an incredible asset that is. So the parents become dependent on children. And even though they may have been professionals in their country, now they depend on their children. I have to be honest, my Chilean education got me through the University of Utah and the BYU Law School. I even call it the BYU Law School, which I often mocked when I lived in Provo. But that will tell you how much one wants to belong. I was told by one professor that I would never go to law school because my English was so poor. When I had my business, I had an advertising agency. I was told by one client, if I just could drop the Latina theme, then maybe some of the engineers would feel more comfortable with me. I asked you, how do you want me to drop the Latina theme? I can't. That's who I am. But then there's the angels, as I call them, or the people who really see you, the ones that give you that opportunity, the one that see your humanity. I had the pleasure to work for Governor Levitt
Vicky Varela was one of my mentors. I always tell her this. She may not believe that, but she has been. Judge David Sam, I had the opportunity to work for him as a young woman. And his last name is Sam because his father was an immigrant from Romania and his father loved Uncle Sam. Therefore, he became David Sam. And he was so proud that his father walked through Europe during the First World War I and came to the United States. So his family could now be called Sam. I mentioned Rick Mayfield. I'm looking at Franz Cole, who I had the pleasure to work with during the Olympics. Len Stillman, and I will mention Ben Collender, my new boss, and Mayor Mendenhall. I look around, I see my friend, I see Franz, I see Byron, I see Ross Romero back there, and many of you who have opened a door for me and who have extended a hand. And I thank you. Because without you, often those doors would have not been open. So what do I bring? I have served on many boards. I'm not a rich person, but I like to contribute a little when I can. But I can contribute my talents and knowledge and my experience. And I can assure you, I can also contribute my authenticity, my honesty. So whenever you invite me to your table to be part of a board of a community, I will speak with honesty and respect, but I will tell you what I know. And again, because I do believe that when we have those difficult discussions, it makes our community stronger. It is an honor for me to do and serve on many boards and to contribute. But I think the greatest example of giving is my mother. She's 82 years old. She retired from the LDS temple, so she lives on a fixed income. And every year she has a project, and it's the greatest project on earth. She makes handmade stuffed animal for children. And she makes those with the most love that I have seen a human being, because she just cares for the faces of those children who may be sick, primary children, or recovering from the trauma of a broken home at the YWCA. She pays for that with her own money because that's what she wants to do, because it's her way to give. So don't discount the little ladies that are sewing at home, because they're a gift to all of us. Just to let you know, the Suazo Center was actually part of the starting of that. Was a GoEd. It was at the time the Department of Community and Economic Development. $5,000 we provided them right after the Olympics. And look what it is today. An asset to our community, started by a Colombian immigrant. I think of US translation, EDCUtah, who is our consul and serves our country. And honestly, I am so impressed. I look at the Consul of Mexico here. I am so impressed with the Mexican people. Man, I have never seen a group of people that work as hard as they do. They put everything into everything that they do. So thank you so much for listening to me and recognizing the gifts and talents of immigrants. Dinesh, thank you for building an incredible business. You've done so much in our community. And for also being willing to have difficult conversations, because this is the only way we can address the issues that are often pushed away because they're difficult. But Utah's better than this. And so is Salt Lake City, because that's where I work. And we have incredible people in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patel, Andrea, and Lorena for sharing your stories. So we're here today because we're here to call you to action. We've seen the data and we have heard the stories. We know there are opportunities that we can work together on. And to Lorena and Andrea and Dr. Patel, there's so much opportunity we can do together and work together to be able to make this community even better for not just us, but for new Americans who are here. So the call to action is to join a work group. we didn't want to just have a convening for the sake of a convening. This is a time to do the work that is necessary to be able to move us forward. The task force is responsible for informing and providing recommendations on key areas related to the goals and outcomes of this initiative. The task force members would consist of community stakeholders representing multiple sectors, and that includes businesses, the government sector, private sector service providers. I see many of you here today, but most importantly, working alongside new Americans who are here today. So we have 4 work groups, and there is a QR code. This is so great to have technology. All you have to do is scan the QR code, and they are in every one of your desks as well. And you can select to serve 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the subcommittees. The 4 work groups are economic opportunity. The task of this particular work group is to promote economic mobility, including adult education, for upskilling, employment services, small business development, and recruiting and retaining global talent. So this is a huge one. I think that data has really shown us that we have some opportunity there to help grow our entrepreneurs, new American entrepreneurs. Upscaling is not a great one. As you look at the data, you can see that close to 46% of new Americans with bachelor's degrees are actually working in a job that does not require a bachelor's degree. So a lot of opportunities there. The second work group is government leadership, promotes working across state and municipal agencies to policies and initiatives that advance their integration efforts in Utah's immigrant communities. We're really lucky that we have the governor's office of economic opportunity really leading out this effort, and we're convening other state leaders as well to be able to work together and let's look at the policies to think about what can we do better in supporting integration. The next one is connected communities. I really love Lorena's story and as well as Andrea's story about sharing. It's not about the policies, but it's also about the little things that each of us could do together. It's the school, the teacher. I see that Superintendent Dixon is here. Thank you so much for being here. And the role that she has played to make sure that immigrant children and children of immigrants are being welcome in the schools. And that is what that is about. It's about connecting communities. And lastly is education. Looking at education policies, both in higher education as well as K-12 education. We have seen the numbers about international students who are in a community and the potential that they bring to us. So that's it. It's time to do the work and a call to action. I thank everyone for being here today, and we do, before I end, we do have some really great snacks. Natalie doesn't want to take all of them home, so make sure that you have some food before you leave. And the food is provided by, of course, the Spice Kitchen Incubator, and one of the focus audience of this incubator is to help new American business owners, which is really great because they're bringing a lot of delicious food to our community. Thank you.